I'm a comedian, yeah.
I have half the brain that you do.
I did it for The Rock.
Oh my God!
The Most Crucial Podcast presents Crucial Squared Circle, the most crucial wrestling podcast with Mark Franchise and Davison Sarai.
A little bit of the bubbly.
And that's the bottom line. The Stone Cold sets up.
Yeah, welcome to the Crucial Squared Circle, a different part of the Most Crucial Podcast. This one's going to be primarily focusing on professional wrestling, something that we've wanted to do for a while. Big professional wrestling fan base here in Battle Creek and in Kalamazoo. Didn't want to do this one solo. I needed someone to come in here, knows what they're talking about. I got Davison Sarai is joining me, my partner in crime. What up? Thanks for hanging out. This is going to be awesome.
What's up, Franchise? It's good to be had.
Indeed. Now, here's what the deal is. So we're going to be just shooting on a whole bunch of different wrestling topics and ideas. Now, if you guys listen to this podcast and you're interested, make sure you leave some comments, leave some feedback. We can always take some phone calls as well and go live with you guys. If you ever have any input, share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe 1049 The Edge on YouTube, and make sure you check out the Most Crucial Podcast as well. Wrestling has always been a huge part of my life, actually one of my earliest memories in life, and it's been pretty huge in yours as well, I take it.
Oh, exact same. Yeah. I don't remember how old I was, but I can remember Ricky Steamboat in some powder blue tights. I couldn't have been older than maybe 7. So, yeah, it's been like a lifer.
It's kind of weird because, like, one of my first memories, it's funny because my dad and my older brother went to WrestleMania 3 at the Pontiac Silverdome, which, if you're not privy to that, is... Well, I guess it was broken by a recent WrestleMania, right? Like the attendance.
The one in Dallas was way over 100,000.
Yeah. I don't know. Was that indoor or outdoor? I can't remember.
It was I think it was indoor. They had like that retractable roof or something.
Yeah.
It was indoor. But for the Silverdome, that was definitely the record. It was like 93,000.
Yeah, 173 people. And it's always been skeptic. There's been a lot of skeptics out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, Dave Meltzer, I think, is a kind of a big skeptic of that actual number. Yep. But regardless, they only had, like, weeks notice when they did that. Like, when right? They only had, like, 2 months, I think, before WrestleMania, and they hadn't even decided on a venue.
Oh, wow.
And that's when Vince went to his guys, and he said, you know, they were like, well, what are you thinking? You know, what are you going to do? And he's like, I want to break the indoor attendance record. What do you think? And they're like, I'm terrified as hell, but we'll try. And they only had a month, and they said in 2 months they think they said within a week they sold 93,000 tickets.
And like that's a big deal because like now we're talking shit about how AEW has been selling out so fast.
Yeah,
and that's a big thing. But those are 12,000 seat arenas, and it's 2019.
It's insane.
We're talking 1986, 87.
87.
For that to happen is just like mind blowing.
And it's not like the internet. You know, the internet now, something happens or something's going on, and everybody knows about it. You just share it.
Right.
Back then, it was just TV, radio, and it was huge.
Yeah.
And you go back and you see some of that footage too, and it's astounding what they were able to accomplish, and they pulled off, in my opinion, the best WrestleMania there's ever been.
Wow.
And that's my opinion. It's my personal favorite, and like I said, I'm a little biased because I grew up 5 minutes from the Pontiac Silverdome.
Did you say you were there?
I was not there. I was about 2.5, I think, at the time, or I was just about 2 years old when that was all going down in 87.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I would have been like 10 or 11 already at that point.
Yeah, I have this vision of having my hand on the TV screen and seeing Andre the Giant choke Bob Uecker out.
I remember that, yeah.
And it's just it's one of the earliest memories that I have, and it's just kind of strange because that was, I believe, the first time people were able to watch for pay-per-view. Before that, it was a lot of closed circuit theaters and.
Well, I remember for WrestleMania 2, it was a big headache because they were trying to do it.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 2 is when they were at like 3 different locations.
Yeah, that was WrestleMania 2, and that was
crazy.
And they even said like the theory of doing something like that now is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And this was in 86, and they pulled it off.
It's like when people talk about NASA and like they put people on the moon with a phone book full of information.
Yeah.
And now we can't get our heads out of our asses with like everything available to human consciousness.
Right, exactly. And so that's, again, I'm a little biased because that's ultimately my second favorite pay-per-view of all time. But it's always going to be one of those, it's always going to be my favorite WrestleMania. I love watching it. There's so many crazy matches in it. And it's just, ever since I was a kid, it was just embedded in my life. Like, It was just a natural part of pop culture. It was huge back then, and I think Hulk Hogan was one of the main reasons for that.
Oh, of course. Well, it's funny, too, because it was the third one, but I'm willing to bet you that most people, if you ask them, like, their visuals of the earliest WrestleManias, they're going to say number 3.
Yeah.
Like, the first one was the groundbreaker, and nobody thought it was ever going to happen. But if you think about the matches, like, there's really not much to report on in terms of match quality for that first WrestleMania.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. It's not my favorite to watch, no doubt. Okay, there's some cool parts in it, but, ultimately they were testing the waters.
Sure.
They were like, let's see if this works. And the big draw was the superstars that they had. Muhammad Ali, I
remember Liberace was on there.
Liberace.
Mr. T was in there.
Yeah, he was in the main event.
Yeah.
Who was the pitcher for the Yankees that they brought in? I can't remember the dude's name.
Christ, I don't know.
He was super. Yeah, I'm not a Yankee fan, so I don't know.
I don't like real sports.
Yeah. But they had a lot of star power, and that's really what drew everybody to that. And it was, it was a happening, and everybody wanted to be a part of it, and it changed wrestling forever.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was really kind of special about the 80s in general. It was because you look at what wrestling was all about, and I think people to a certain extent still appreciated the sport, and it's something that's only now coming back in terms of broadcasting. Because when you look at those, when it comes to, like, if someone were to say, okay, name the greatest broadcast team ever, it's like saying shoot your left foot or shoot your right foot.
Do you mean for wrestling?
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus. Well, let me think about that. I mean, this might not be a popular opinion. I've always hated the King. So, like,
Jerry the King Lawler?
Yeah.
And
as much as I love JR and all the incarnations of his teams, the big one I can think of that most people probably saw was he and the King through the Attitude Era.
Yep.
Kind of ruined it for me. I'm
really?
kind of loving this new AEW team right now with Shivani.
I don't think there's any competition when it comes to AEW and WWE when it comes to broadcasting. I think the 3-man team that they've got assembled right now is incredibly strong. And when you listen to JR and Shivani, the uneducated wrestling fan is like, oh, they're old and, we don't want to hear the same old guys anymore. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, you're an uneducated bitch. And second of all, on top of that, it's not just their voices that I'm listening to.
It's the content.
It's the way they present the match. And AEW is allowing wrestlers to tell the story. And not always by talking. It's not necessarily all about talk sometimes. It's about the performance and going out there and what they're doing and how they're scripting the matches and how they're scripting the show.
Sure. That
is different than what anything WWE has done. And I love the Botchamania skit, You Talk Too Much. Because it kind of works on different levels to me, because everybody's got a mic now. Everybody's got something to say, and yet nothing to say.
Yeah.
And nothing is believable. A friend of mine, Jake Simmons, the other day posted on Facebook, it's pretty bad when Total Divas is more interesting than Raw or SmackDown.
It is pretty bad.
I said, no, are you serious? He's like, no, I'm dead serious. Mm-hmm. And that's bad.
I've officially kind of given up on Raw and SmackDown for the time being. I am so disappointed. Honestly, I feel betrayed. I feel betrayed by the whole company at this point in time.
That's an honest feeling, because that's a big thing with me. Is you look in the 80s, not everyone had a microphone. In fact, they were heavy on managers in the 80s.
Sure.
Managers did a lot of talking. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that they just did a lot of talking, but they had charisma. You believed that they were who they were on screen. Sure. They became that person. So when you look back at the great manager of the A's, like Bobby the Brain Heenan, easily the greatest manager of all time.
That's an opinion.
It's arguably. And you had Slickster.
Ooh, I forget about Slickster. Jimmy Hart.
Yeah,
that whole era. I think, honestly, I want to go back to what you said a minute ago. You were talking about kind of the realism of what AEW is doing right now in terms of not only ring performance, but their announcing performance. They're going out of their way to kind of embrace a bit more of like a quote-unquote realistic sports presentation.
Yeah.
Right? And that is organic. You don't plan an NFL game. It happens.
Yes.
You don't plan an NBA game. It happens. And we know that there's a theory that there are predetermined outcomes in professional wrestling.
Yeah.
But you believe because they are competing in that ring. And if I think historically, all the way back to the era we're talking about right now, early 80s, I can't think of any authenticity ever. I think it's always been performative.
And it really has. And everything about the production of the matches was done in a way that they had a respect for what they were doing, and they went out there and they respected the sport of wrestling. Yeah. And they went out there and, yes, you know, the golden era of wrestling brought in these flamboyant characters where wrestlers weren't just dudes in spandex anymore who were grapplers. You had all these guys who had, you know, Classy Freddie Blassie and the Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, these guys who were so flamboyant.
They're like the first wave, like introduction of characters.
And how smug, and they just drove people insane. Yep. And it was awesome because, again, they were changing the way wrestling was. And they were like, you know, I'm sure back then they probably pissed a lot of people off. But what they were doing was, no, we can still respect the sport, but give it a little panache. Yeah. Give it a little bit something extra. And I think a lot of those 80s wrestlers had the ability to do that. And then you look at the commentating teams of Gorilla Monsoon with Bobby the Brain Heenan or Gorilla Monsoon with Jesse Ventura.
Now that you said that, I think that may be my all-time favorite. Even though I just got done saying a performative piece, Ventura and Gorilla had some kind of natural chemistry that did not seem manufactured.
Because the best part about it was Gorilla Monsoon was always the voice of reason. But Jesse the Body was, in another sense, the voice of reason. He would love to call Gorilla Monsoon out when a good guy did something that was against the rules and got away with it. And one, he'd be like, well, what do you say about that, Gorilla?
Yeah. Why was it okay for this to happen and all of a sudden you're fine with that? You're a big, giant hypocrite, Gorilla.
Yeah, he would just get into it. And they both had the understanding that there was no like, okay, you're going to be like this and I'm going to be like this. This is who they were as broadcasters. Yeah. And everything they did was so natural. And they had perfect flow for calling a match. They had enough flow to where you're calling the action in the ring, but you're also going deeper into the storyline. And that's what happens when you have wrestlers who aren't allowed to talk all the time. And when they do talk, it's short and sweet, right to the point, boom. And you allow the presenters, the commentating team, not only to walk you through the match, but walk you through the animosity and tell you the story while it's happening.
It's like a narrator.
Basically. Yeah. And I just don't feel like that's something that there's a certain amount of grace that you have to have in it. And I think the combination of WWE giving everybody a reality TV show and having very unbelievable entertainers, and I call them entertainers because they've clearly put more focus on entertaining than wrestling. And I think that's one of the big things that's turned me off, especially lately, is I feel like it's just Botchville constantly.
Well, yeah, I think about that a lot, and I think about how, let's go all the way back to WrestleMania 3 again.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say that Hogan and Andre starred in that show. Now, work rate fans would argue that Macho Man and Steamboat headed up that show. Like,
Absolutely.
That's the one a lot of people remember. I personally remember the Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation being my favorite match on that.
Right.
But then if I think about Cena's era.
Yeah, the ruthless aggression era.
Well, I think about, in some ways, people will say the greatest thing that ever happened to the WWE was when Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock blew up at the exact same time. Like, here comes your boom era.
Right.
I would say, though, that during that time period, Vince McMahon and the creative staff allowed their concept of what this wrestling is supposed to be to morph into a one-man or a two-man show.
Yeah.
And they relied solely on that. And when they drifted, there was a lull.
Yeah.
But then here came Cena. And we had 10 fucking years
Right.
of John Cena getting shoved down our throats and selling toys and wristbands and Fruity Pebble t-shirts, and then it was nothing but a kid's toy box of merch, and we're all sitting around going, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
Like, where did wrestling go?
Right. And it turned into a kid's show, and it changed. Society was changing, and so they felt like they had to change with it. And I just don't. That's when, I'll be honest with you, that's when I fell off. And I hate to say it, but I knew as soon as WCW was bought out, I was like, it's over. Mm-hmm. I'm not even interested anymore. Mm-mm. Because there goes your competition. Mm-hmm. And he touted, oh, I bought my competition. And for him, he kind of said, well, for him personally, it was just another day at the office.
Please.
And I looked at that as like, I don't think competition is bad. I think having a variety of things in anything in life is good when it comes to entertainment. And solely having a monopoly and a chokehold on the wrestling industry has just turned them soft.
Oh, my God.
And
there's no steel to sharpen the steel. There's no reason to.
Yeah. And anybody, NXT is like the only thing I'll give a pass on, because you have these people, and I think it's because Triple H runs it. And
for now.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know, I kind of feel like NXT has storylines, athletic ability, real wrestling, mm-hmm. and they have a way of presenting their product that's impressive. I think it was was it a quadruple tag team match inside the steel cage? Was that War Games?
Oh, yeah.
I think it was
it Undisputed Era?
It was NXT War Games.
Is that the one you're thinking of?
I think so. And there was like Undisputed Era, the War Raiders.
The War Raiders.
Who else was in that? Was Dunn in that one?
I think so. Yeah, it was kind of a hodgepodge. I can't remember who the last... I kind of want to say Ricochet?
Ricochet was in there.
Like double moonsault and almost killed himself there at the end. Yeah.
And I watched that match and I was so impressed. I was like, that's the best thing I've seen come out of WWE in years.
And it's ironic. That was WWE literally meeting WCW.
Right.
It was a marriage of the two, and lo and behold, it was fucking awesome.
And that's the thing is, I don't know if it's Vince McMahon. I don't know if it's his vision that's ruining this or what the deal is, but something happened somewhere along the line. I think you nailed it perfectly, the John Cena era, where it was like, now it's a family show. Mm-hmm. Now it's John Cena. And the reason I couldn't stand John Cena, it was because he would come out there and be like, oh, win or lose, good or bad, these people are why I'm here. And it's just like, oh, you're such a douche.
Well, also, that's literally pulling the rug out from under what this product is.
Right.
We're casting it as a competition. That means you're trying to win. When you got a goody two-shoes who comes out to an intrinsically violent, antisocial product,
right,
and says, I don't care if I win or lose, these people still got my back, and we know he's right. It's like, what's the point of even looking at this thing?
Yeah. It's just so, again, it's very... The whole thing of wrestling, it's supposed to be a work. It's supposed to be theater in front of you. And a lot of people used to say it's a soap opera for guys, which is a very bland way of saying that, because there's so many people of so many races, creeds, and colors that are fans of wrestling. And I never looked at it like that. I just looked at it as entertainment. And it's the same thing with like when people get super into fictional shows, and it's the same thing. It literally is the same thing, except those people aren't actually putting their bodies on the line every single day of the year. It's just...
I thought this was one of the smartest things I ever said. When all of that shit went down, when Game of Thrones was wrapping up, and all of these bloodthirsty fans were screaming and hollering about how this didn't go the way we wanted it to go, and they were going to strike. And remember, they were writing in and getting this whole petition going. I said to a couple of friends, these people are clearly not professional wrestling fans.
Right.
I'm used to getting dragged through the dirt for a decade at a time.
Oh, my gosh.
Look at these people freaking out over one season of a show.
No joke.
And that's sad that I've been conditioned that much from a thing that I love.
Right.
Ugh.
And that's the beauty and really the audience will always tell you how you're doing. I think if it wasn't for ECW, audiences wouldn't be as vocal about how they feel. I think it almost became somewhat of a trend to take what ECW fans did, but I think it's past that trendy point now. I think a lot of WWE fans still like to do the chants and show love to people that they do support and everything, but I think it's gotten to the point now where they're starting to get real. They're not holding back anymore, and you can't block out that many people. I mean, the most recent Hell in the Cell was a freaking joke.
Well, you know what? I want to touch on the thing you just said. So ECW is the first one that I can remember an audience so bloodthirsty and so dedicated that they were screaming the name of the company. It wasn't just chanting for their favorite wrestler.
Right.
They did that too.
Right.
But in unison, they would just scream the name of this company. And now you'll hear AEW do it. You'll certainly hear CZW do it.
Yeah.
You will never hear people say WWE over and over again.
Right.
Never.
Because there's nothing there. There's nothing of, and I say that with respect to guys like Ricochet and Finn Balor, and
that's why it's so sad.
They're so talented, and unfortunately, a lot of these guys have been pigeonholed. They get shoved up. And rightfully so, because they're popular. But like when they take someone from NXT, one of the things that really pissed me off was Ronda Rousey.
Oh God!
When she was brought in and given a world title for nothing, and you had someone like Ruby Riott, who I really liked. How good
was her stable?
What's that?
How good was her stable?
Well, the whole thing, the Riot Squad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All of them got hoed out when Crazy Mary Dobson, when she worked for JCW.
Ruby did?
Not Ruby. Sarah Logan. She used to be Crazy Mary Dobson when she wrestled for Juggalos.
Yeah,
and then she got picked up. Actually, I heard that they made her cover up her Hatchet Man tattoo because they're a gang, and Vince doesn't have a problem saying the N-word, but he doesn't like gangs.
He doesn't have a problem with gangs either.
Yeah.
If it's the Mean Street Posse, he has a problem with outside material being featured on his little internalized universe of bullshit.
Well, and I think he's a little butthurt over ICP too, because ICP came in and did a lot of free work, and they never got the advertisement they were supposed to get, and since they were never under contract, they no-showed for an event, and then they were kind of like blackballed by Vince, even though Vince never. He was supposed to, according to Joe Bruce, he was supposed to plug their new album, The Amazing Jekyll Brothers. He never did that. He was supposed to do a whole lot of publicity. They went in and recorded a song for the Oddities.
Okay. Oh, okay.
They were part of the Oddities,
yeah,
so they recorded a song. They would come out and do free work in return for publicity, and apparently that never happened.
That's shocking.
So... I don't know exactly what happened. That's basically when Joe Bruce was like, "Yeah, I'm out. We're done here. We've been here for months and they haven't held up their bargain, so we're out."
Yeah.
And so I think that may be another reason. That, and he doesn't want to be affiliated with Juggalos since they're apparently labeled a gang, which is ridiculous to begin with.
Whatever.
But
let's go back. So we were talking about Sarah Logan a minute ago and Ruby Riott. Do you remember when that whole crew broke out in Hell in a Cell?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember how organically that crowd was responding to Sarah Logan through that whole match?
Yeah.
She was a beast.
And what was it? It was the Battle Royal, too, the all-female Battle Royal.
Yeah. They recognized that she was a beast, and they're going to use her as such. And very quickly, in typical fashion, rather than listening to the crowd going, that person, that one right there just captured our imagination.
Yeah.
And any business person in their right mind should go, there's my product.
Yeah.
That's easy.
That's all it's literally, they're giving you the answer.
But they'll take that product and use it to shine another product that we don't want.
Yeah. Roman Reigns.
On repeat. Yes.
And that was the thing. Like, basically, John Cena was the prototype, and they thought they could just take Roman Reigns and turn him into The Rock. And look at what he did. And I give credit to him because I know he's, apparently went through this cancer thing, and he made the bounce back, and that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It really is phenomenal. And but how can you hate on a guy now? How can you hate on a dude who survived cancer and came back? And I think it's just a matter of they tried so hard.
Did you hate Roman, or did you hate the way that they forced
I hated the way they forced him. Because when they were in S.H.I.E.L.D. together, I was like, hell yeah.
Right.
That's a freaking stable.
Yeah. Now, he was my third choice.
Right,
You know
no
what I mean?
doubt. But he was a crucial part of the stable.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I said, it was not about him.
Right.
It was about how they were like, yes, he's your new champion. He's your new leader of the Federation. And it's like, no.
He wasn't even the leader of that group. Until they started saying that.
Seth freaking Rollins.
Well, not Moxley, but Ambrose at the time. I always kind of just assumed that he was, because he was kind of the mouthpiece. I took him as, and they always said there's no leader. But in my mind, when you got a stable like that, back to the Horsemen, who did the most talking? Flair.
Yeah.
Who was the head of the Horsemen? Flair.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it made sense to me. Like, oh, right on. You know, like Moxley was killing it on the indies. I'd never seen anybody do a promo. Like, I mean, even compared to the last 30, 40 years, I was telling people that dude is going to be so famous with his stick work. And then he shows up in the Shield, and I was like, holy shit, the world just blew up.
Yeah.
And then they just go, yeah, we're going to go ahead and snatch the quietest, greenest member as usual. Shove him right up your ass.
And again, like that's what really annoys me. It was even with Enzo Amore and Big Cass. I didn't know too much about them, and then I heard rumblings about them, and then I saw their promos, and I was like, now that's one heck of a promo.
Oh my God, yeah.
And then I saw him in the ring, and I was like, all right, Big Cass isn't a bad wrestler. He's a big guy. He's nothing flashy. Yeah. Enzo Amore was all talk. Not really much talent in the ring, but because they had that continuity between one another and that great mic work, you could see them. Yeah, they're a good tag team. Yeah. You could consider them a decent tag team. But then when I saw that and I saw how good they had, the good chemistry they had on the mic, I was like, well, give that about 3 months and they're going to break them up. And then what happened?
They broke them up.
They gone.
Yeah.
You know, so it's constant. Like I just wonder.
That's like that mentality. This tag team thing isn't marketable, even though their shirts were flying off the shelves.
Right.
Vince needs his golden guy, singular, and so he took. I mean, the focus was going to be on Enzo. To me, like, there's your mouthpiece, there's your brains. But who did we see on TV the most? Enzo got shipped off to 205, which barely had a pulse.
Yeah.
And now we got Big Cass just screwing up every match he's in as an individual.
It's bad.
Like, you're throwing away money to try to invent this different kind of money. You already had money. Just take that money.
And that's a big thing that they excelled in going back to the 80s and even into the early 90s as well, is you had just natural tag teams. When you looked at tag teams back then, they looked the same, they acted the same, but they had their own personalities. You had the Road Warriors, you had Demolition, you had the Bushwhackers, you had the Head Shrinkers, you know, you had the Heart Foundation.
Well, I go to WCW and I think about the Rock and Roll Express. The Midnight Express, like, you know, same trunks.
Rockers.
Yeah, totally. When you were talking about Enzo and Big Cass, I was going to say, to me, that was kind of a modernized and like exaggerated version of the Rock and Roll Express to me.
Right.
You had your kind of baby face in peril, which would have been Enzo and Ricky Morton. And clearly Dennis Gibson is no Big Cass.
Right.
But, you know, kind of the more quiet workhorse who's going to come in.
Yeah.
That's a classic dynamic. And that's what they always used to focus on before it became strict marketability.
Yeah. It's just, they've lost sight of everything that's important. And that's the amazing thing. Like I said, they've got a crowd now that's going to tell them how they feel. So what are you going to do? You're going to go out there week after week and piss people off when they're yelling answers at you?
Yeah.
When do you start listening to them and giving them the things that they want to see?
Why bother? You got $1 billion from Fox.
You know? Exactly. And if they don't look at what AEW is as competition, they're really dumb. But AEW is not even looking at WWE as competition because they're not doing anything we're doing. And, you know, I think that's what the 80s era kind of brought to wrestling, was this understanding between the wrestlers, how to work. You were only given a microphone if there was a good reason for you to be given the microphone. And a lot of those shows, like I said, it was based on pay-per-view in the early, like in the mid-80s, well, I should say the mid-80s leading into 1990. You were only given a mic if it was a pay-per-view. Yeah. If it was Superstars or something, you know, there'd be a couple of interviews with one of the main guys, and you'd go out there and tell the story with your body. You had guys who were good talkers, and they relied on their rival, the person that they were going up against, to tell the story with their body.
Right.
Because not everybody had mic skills, but when they got on the mic, something special was said.
Yeah.
And you believed it. You believed it in your heart because they were natural about it. Now they got like 30 writers, and it's all a script. It's all a script instead of just letting them shoot from the hip, relaxing a little bit, letting them breathe, and let them focus on wrestling and not entertaining.
Yeah.
And that to me is what had the main struggle has been. That's why I can tell the insincerity of what they're doing. Even in leading up to, the 90s, when things were a little cartoonish, you started to see this shift happen in halfway through the 90s, when ultimately the biggest turn in professional wrestling history, when the NWO was formed.
You had Hogan break out of his Mattel packaging to become a fully fleshed human figure finally.
And that's when the Attitude Era started. I'd say, granted, ECW had been doing stuff. They had, under the radar, ECW was doing everything that WWE and WCW would eventually start doing.
Yeah.
They were the innovators of that. But if you're going to pinpoint a time when the Attitude Era started, it was that era.
It was in response to these. That's the thing. I've thought about this before too. So a lot of people don't think back far enough to realize that WWF used to just be another territory in North America, surrounded by like 20 or 30 other major territories all the way across the continental U.S., right?
Yep.
And then, years go by, and Vince's father, Vince Sr., starts making more money. He's accumulating. He's buying up these territories. He's buying up the talent. His creation, quote unquote, was stolen property from the very get.
Yeah.
And then the next big boom is they get competition from ECW. They're more hardcore. You get NWO. And what do you know? Here comes the Attitude Era. And Vince is a quote unquote genius for stealing again.
Yeah.
And now, but here's the thing that gets me, and this is why this feels so unique to me today. I want to talk for the next 20 years about how pissed off I am about their treatment of Bray Wyatt over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And specifically the last month with the Fiend character. This was the first time I've seen them have a reaction to an uprising in another company. And their reactions have always been to take what's happening and build upon it.
Yeah.
And that's been their successful formula. And this time, they were starting to react, and here came the Fiend. And I was like, oh my God, he just saved this company.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've seen Vince go, no, we're not going to build on this continuation that we always had our success from. I don't know if he squashed it, but most of us feel like he already squashed it.
Yeah.
And that's a turning point to me. That is like a window into his psyche. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that.
The crowd reaction said it all.
Oh my God.
When you are having a overwhelming boo, and not out of anger, not out of displeasure for the bad guy.
Oh, no.
You remember there were multiple pay-per-views back in the Attitude Era when, like, Austin lost the title to Kane and The Undertaker. Yeah. People were booing not because they were unhappy with the product, but because the bad guys won.
Because they bought
and
in. They bought in.
Yeah, and they were sold on the storyline. They're booing now because they're unhappy with they're paying hard ass money to a billionaire who is just constantly screwing them, and screwing with them on an emotional level. And it's like, how are you supposed to be emotionally engaged if you're going to be constantly let down and dragged through the mud?
Right.
And the crowd is so keen on being able to pick out the raw talent, the people who understand wrestling.
Sure.
The people who understand the art of it and the art of being in character. The Riot Squad is one of the coolest. And like I was kind of alluded to earlier, how Ruby Riot was just a hit job on that pay-per-view. They tapped out in like 4 minutes. I was like, what a effing joke.
Yep.
And then Sarah Logan was on the Women's Battle Royal, and I was like, oh my God, she's going to win.
Right.
Oh my God, she's going to win. I'm so excited. Oh, nope, they gave it to, what's her trash? Camila? Or
Is that
whatever?
what it was?
Yeah, she looked like she was about to win. And then I was just like, when is the Riot Squad ever going to get what they deserve? And then they brought in the women's tag team titles, and I'm like, oh, Riot Squad, please. Nope. No, Bailey.
Yeah.
Sasha Banks. Oh, neat.
And I'm a huge Sasha Banks fan. I always have been. I probably always will be. And I don't even mind that they were kind of the chosen ones because I was already fans and I felt like they were good enough to deserve it.
They were the top. If you were going to talk about the tag team, they were definitely the most popular and favorite amongst the fans. Yeah. So I was not unhappy with how they chose that. The Iconics, like when they won the tag team titles, I thought it was kind of funny because who they are is very theatrical.
I love them so
and
much.
Goofy, and I just love that you still have a little bit of that left.
Yep.
And they're good competitors.
Yeah.
They're
great characters, both of them.
Yeah. And that was the whole thing. It's like, dude, if you make me laugh and you entertain me, you deserve to be on the top.
Yep.
I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. I felt like, everyone's got to take wins and losses, but when you hold people back, I think one of the biggest sellers, especially recently, and I've seen arguments on Facebook about this, is Finn Balor going to NXT. Somebody was marking out big time because, Finn back. And I'm like, how is a demotion good for your career? Now, don't get me wrong. On a personal level, hell yeah, I love NXT way more than WWE, and I love Finn Balor, so you mix the two together, and that's sweet for viewers, but it's a total demotion. Because it's your in a sense, your farm system.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but think about how people are perceiving the products.
Right.
So they're going to put them into wholesale, which holds 500 people.
Right.
Smallish, but passionate. It makes it feel like a big deal when they have really great matches. I don't know if they would have cut his pay necessarily to push him back down there.
Yeah.
I could understand them maybe trying to add some more validity to the product, especially now that they're on USA.
Yeah.
But you can be in front of 15,000 dissatisfied people who are sick of the product.
Yeah.
Or you can be in front of 500 hungry wrestling fans and feel a passionate response to your craft.
I don't think he's going to have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to have a problem with that. I think just as a fan, I look at it as you're getting so desperate that you have to demote somebody to get people excited.
Your first Universal Champion. Yep.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Where is the hope once you leave NXT? Where is the hope? What's going to become of you? And I see what Moxley's doing with Kenny Omega, and I'm just like, that is a frickin' rivalry.
He could have been... They could have just taken the reins off him a little teeny bit. They gave him the world title, and they still had him making jokes about eating pizza with the homeless.
Yeah.
Or fighting with house plants.
Right.
He's a bona fide superstar, and he always has been.
I think something you're going to start seeing in AEW crowds, too, is, and again, this is just an opinion, is just something I see, something I recognize. Think back, if you can remember, when Mick Foley won the world, when Mankind beat The Rock for the world title for the first time ever.
When he was running around the ring on the shoulders of DX?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, now if you can recall, if you've ever seen this clip before, you'll know what I'm talking about. Go back and look at the crowd's reaction when Stone Cold's music hits. It's literally bedlam and pandemonium amongst the crowd.
That was one of the biggest pops ever.
One of the biggest pops of all time, and it gives me goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of moments in wrestling that do that to me when I think about the crowd's reaction, and it is an atrocity when you think of the way that crowd reacted to the lackluster look in the crowd of people typing on their phones and looking bored and uninterested in the front row of a pay-per-view at a WWE event. But
now think about how WWE is trying to spin it. They're jumping all over this, F millennials type philosophy, and they're rolling some of their biggest superstars out to troll the crowd now.
Yeah.
I don't understand why these fans are so negative. I don't understand why they can't accept the fact that we're working hard. Who the hell does that?
Yeah, Baron Corbin, you're a jabroni and you're talentless. Get off my frickin' face. I was just like, why is this guy getting so much face time? Why is he winning King of the Ring?
You didn't hear why?
No.
You didn't hear this thing about Vince?
No.
I saw this on several semi-reputable wrestling podcasts on YouTube. Apparently, Vince held the opinion that Baron Corbin is the kind of guy that women would swoon over.
the hell?
I heard this in multiple places, including Meltzer. Come on.
Like, what is that?
Come on.
What kind of mentality is that for anything?
This goes way over the board of like what we're doing here in terms of wrestling talk, but I mean, my profession is in mental health.
Yeah.
And I've very seriously considered writing a dissertation, just for kicks, on the psychology of one Vincent Kennedy McMahon and the fact that he is in his mid-70s and he's still trying to maintain 5% body fat with a 400-pound bench press. He won't allow himself to sneeze because it's weakness. You hear these crazy stories that they talk about?
That's insane.
I just think, like, how abusive was his father that he's still trying to overcompensate and demonstrate his virility and, you know, put this other company out of business to demonstrate that he can. Forget that he laid waste to the entire industry in doing so.
Totally.
It was just ego play. And so when he pulls these popular organic products, Daniel Bryan, like Rey Mysterio is one of the most popular wrestlers in the last 20 years. Easy.
Talented, too.
He got booed out of the building when he was the 20th entrant to that Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
When everybody wanted Daniel Bryan in that, the place came apart with boos. And that wasn't them booing Ray.
Right.
Let's be fair.
It was the decision making.
Absolutely. And before that happened, CM Punk caught fire organically.
Yeah.
And they ended up making a lot of money on him, but it was begrudgingly.
Yeah.
Triple H had to come out of retirement and squash him just to prove something.
Yeah, just to teach him a lesson or to put him in his place. And that's why I loved CM Punk. And a lot of people have hate on him because he's real.
He's one of my favorites of all time.
And he didn't give a trash. And I love that he went out there and he just sat there on the stage and started talking trash.
How great was that?
And it was just like such a big middle finger to all the crap that he saw what's happening now playing out right in front of him.
8 years ago. Oh, yeah.
He knew exactly what was going to happen.
Absolutely.
And it happened. And people are constantly, that's why I emotionally broke myself away from the WWE when the buyout happened. And then I kind of came back during the Ruthless Aggression because I was kind of keeping an eye on it and seeing what was happening. And I've always kept an eye on it, especially through social media. They've made it very easy to show you everything that's going on. But again, you have to that's the way you keep somebody around when you have a product like that, is you keep it entertaining. And you're not always going to win everybody over with everything that you do. But I think it's just the manner of which he's doing it and what he's doing and how he's doing it and the people that he's bringing up and the choices that he's making for them.
Yeah.
Again, it's everything that AEW is doing right now is completely organic. And I think they're giving their wrestlers the ability to go out there and prove themselves and have a good match. You know, I watched All Elite match the world title match between Jericho and I can't remember the kid's name.
Darby Allin?
Darby, yeah.
Love that dude.
And it was very reminiscent in a sense of a Monday Night Raw match I saw back in the day between Bret the Hitman Hart facing the 1-2-3 Kid for the world title. Now, on paper, that's asinine.
No. Scrappy underdog.
But at the time, it wasn't asinine because you looked at it like, well, this kid beat Razor Ramon.
Right.
And so now he's got a chance to beat Bret the Hitman Hart. And Sean Waltman is a freaking worker.
Sure.
He had so much talent at such a young age. He had such a great match with Bret that you believed multiple times that he was about to become champion.
Yep.
That was Bret Hart being the consummate performer he was. That was Sean Waltman as a 1-2-3 Kid being just this kid with tremendous amounts of talent and pure chemistry between one another. Yep. In fact, Bret won the match, and Sean 1-2-3 Kid had his foot on the rope, I think, and then Bret demanded they restart the match.
Oh, noble hitman.
And he almost lost, and they're like, uh-oh, you know, because then they built they were like, oh my God,
right.
You know, he had the win, now he may lose, and it was just, again,
that's great storytelling.
It really is. It was amazing storytelling, and it was Monday Night Raw, and it was Jim Ross and Macho Man Randy Savage on commentary, and it was a phenomenal match, and Randy Savage gave it a standing ovation. Both of them did. They were they were floored. And I look at that match and I kind of watch what Jericho did with Darby, and I'm like, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
He gave him some things to overcome. And, Jericho's not the performer he was in the ring when he was 20, but he still got it.
It's like, well, he's not as athletic.
Yeah.
I would say there's been a little bit of a topsy-turvy, where he used to be a workhorse, and he was kind of working on his character. He's always been a little goofy, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, I would say he's really flipped the script 180, where he's always reinventing that character.
Yeah.
Like you said, you could just give him, you could scribble any word on a piece of paper and give it to him, and he'll have the crowd chanting it in 4 weeks.
How do you
get it over?
Right. How do you go from, you just made the list, and then that's done, and then he literally comes back with just shooting from and doing an unscripted thing, and then says one thing, and it blows the internet up.
Are you referring to him having a little bit of the bubbly?
Yeah, exactly. He did. I saw that because it blew up the night he did it, and I laughed my ass off. And I was like, that's about to be huge.
Whoever's listening to this, if you haven't come across the little bit of the bubbly phenomenon,
seriously,
get on YouTube, type in the words Chris Jericho bubbly compilation. There are like 10-minute compilations of memes. I have died laughing watching these things. And this is a dude who's close to 50, who has honed his skill set. Now he's winning matches with a back elbow, for Christ's sake.
Right.
He's getting that over. I watch what he's doing. Like, he put together this faction of largely unknowns. I mean, LAX is known to impact people, but and in one night, he took these people and he cut a 5-minute promo. He called Guevara the sexy Spanish god.
Yeah.
He talked about LAX being these beat your ass in the street thugs.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Jake Hager was a giant, whatever.
Right.
But now they have credibility. It took him 5 minutes to rub them.
Right.
They have credibility.
And the thing is about it all is like I believe in him. I believe in his ability to lead. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing, another future. I mean, Kenny Omega, that belt's made for him,
of course.
And it's going to be interesting to see how they fluctuate the title belt between, and Cody Rhodes playing a huge part of it. That guy was totally underestimated and underappreciated and undervalued in the WWE.
He was one of my WWE favorites for a couple of years there. He really was. And
I really liked him, and I when they put the Stardust thing on him, he was so unhappy with that. And it's like, he doesn't need to live in his brother's shadow.
Right.
And that's what they wanted. That's what Vince may have thought was going to get him over.
This is a side note, but tell me what you think of this. Dusty Rhodes and his pink polka dots, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of talk about why that happened. There's a lot of talk about, was that Vince's way of making money off him while simultaneously humiliating him for being so popular elsewhere?
Yeah.
Gold Dust, same colors as Dusty's black and yellow.
Yeah.
And then here we had the youngest coming up, and he wasn't, we knew who he was.
Yeah.
We knew he's from the family, but he wasn't being like belittled. If you want to look at those two as being belittled in a certain kind of a way.
Right.
That wasn't happening until Stardust happened.
Yeah.
And I just threw my hands up like, I feel like I'm watching this crazy old man's psychosis play out on the screen.
Yeah.
And he's trying to sell his personal grudge against the family as marketable product. It was just like...
And again, it was cheesy, gimmicky.
Yes.
It was like, the reason Goldust worked was because nobody was acting... well, how would you define Goldust was extremely... He had a very homoerotic vibe to him, and that's what he sold himself on. And that's why, even as a heel, I loved him. Yeah. When he did the whole thing with Razor Ramon, and he gave Ahmed Johnson mouth resuscitation.
I thought he was going to get murdered, yeah.
I loved everything that they were doing with Goldust because, again, that was crossing into a realm that no wrestling didn't touch sexuality like that. If they did, it was...
It was kind of like you had, what's his name, Adrian Street.
Yeah.
You had Adrian Adonis. Mm-hmm. You said something about Gorgeous George way back in the day.
Yeah.
So those are hinting at it.
Yeah.
But now we had this like pornographic, androgynous.
Yeah.
What the fuck and who the fuck is that person? And why are they crawling all over that giant muscle-bound dude and kissing him?
Oh, yeah, God.
Like,
when he would, like, when he'd have him pinned against the corner and he'd, like, slowly ride his hands up the dude's chest and they'd freak out. And I thought that was hilarious because I'm like, again, you're crossing over to a character that you've never entered into before. You've done the flamboyance guys,
right,
and the guys who are all ripped like Ravishing Rick Rude, but you've never had a guy come out there and test people's comfort levels in terms of sexuality,
including his opponents.
Oh yeah, indeed.
I often wonder, like, they obviously knew they're going to this match, but I wonder how many of them were gritting their teeth the whole time.
Yeah, and that's again, it was a natural thing. That was like, whoa, but then you're going to, you can't slap that on somebody. Nope. You can't slap that and be like, you're Stardust now. And you know, you look at what Cody Rhodes is all about now and the way they're building him up.
Yeah.
He's serious business.
Yeah.
And he wants to be respected. And he's got the talent that he's already got my respect. That match he had with Dustin Reynolds.
Oh my God.
Was
bloodbath. 5 stars. I mean, come on, we got 9-star matches now, so I get that the shine has kind of come off a little bit. But I'll go ahead and, I mean, I have a hard time saying best match of the year because you have your work rate matches, you have your story-driven matches. That one, to me, was a nice combination of both with that old school, real feel. And like you were saying before, you want to gauge how effective they were at storytelling. Look at that crowd. Yeah. You know,
they're on their feet and they love it. And everything they do, everything that's happening in AEW right now is bringing excitement back into my life. I'll be honest, I drifted away from wrestling for a while. And then when I started making friends out here in Kalamazoo, they were into wrestling. And I was like, yeah, I'll watch it. We'll go and I'll hang out and watch pay-per-views and I'll follow it on social media. And then I'll hit the big pay-per-views up and see what it's all about. And, you know, they're still some surprises, but again, on the grand level of people caring and being invested in the product, the older audience is getting sick and tired of this.
Oh yeah,
and I know they don't care about the older audience because if they did, they'd listen to them.
Well, you know, older audience doesn't buy their little toys unless they have their own little kids. But it used to be very important. The crowd used to be, I mean, the demographic was all over the place. Sure.
And the Attitude Era saw the male demographic go way up, and then that's who they were targeting. And then basically...
That 18 to 35 is the one they're always talking about. That's when they snagged that number. And they just
exactly.
Yeah.
But now lately it's been, in the last 10, 15 years, it's all been about that super young, influential, and I tip my hat the fact that they do a lot of charity work.
Oh, it's great.
And they give a lot. That's so freaking huge to kids, and some of the stuff that they've done to kids who are, you know, terminal, the experiences they've given them.
Oh, that Connor's Cure stuff.
Oh my gosh,
it makes me weep a little bit.
It's heartbreaking, and at the same time, it's like you have some really great people who are still a part of this industry, and it's no detriment to the people who are out there performing. It's nothing against them. I can never say I've ever hated a wrestler because I've always respected what they've done, but I think there's just been certain wrestlers where John Cena being one of them, Roman Reigns being another, where it's like, I don't hate them personally, but who they are as characters and what the company is trying to do, it's just not working. Mm-hmm. And John Cena, it worked for the kids. The kids loved him.
Yeah.
But the older generation was just like, oh my God.
Well, think about that too. They refused to listen. And I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I don't hate John Cena. In fact, once he became less popular, and this is particular, I think, to wrestling psychology as fans, we've become accustomed now to resenting what the mainstream product is so much that even when you take the most mainstream guy like Cena, and he goes on a little bit of a losing streak, comes in and grabs that U.S. title, now I'm a fan.
Right.
He's, same dude, same moveset, same everything. But now I don't hate him because he's not being served to me like the main chorus that I don't want anything to do with.
Right. And it's okay to not be the top man and to, even if You know, think back about, you know, a lot of the heels. Look at Honky Tonk Man.
Oh, man.
People hated the Honky Tonk Man because, number one, he couldn't play guitar. He couldn't sing. But he had that Elvis personality down pat. And that was his gig. And he held on to the Intercontinental title for, 13 months?
He had the record for a minute. Yeah. Does he still have? No. Somebody took it now. But he was the longest reigning for the longest time there.
He was. And it was... And again, the perfect way to break that streak. His Intercontinental title run was, I thought, like one of the best title exchanges of all time because it was so, again, it was WWF at the time understanding when they had a rising star and they said, we're going to frickin' make somebody tonight.
Strapping the rocket.
And he beat up Coco Beware. And he was like, I don't care who's going to face me now. Bring it in. And all of a sudden, and then he's like, wait a minute, what? And then here comes the Warrior getting from the gorilla position to the ring.
And I'm a little kid jumping up and down in my living room in this moment.
Just runs in there, plows him over with a couple of clothesline, lifts him up for a gorilla press, drops him, splash onto the back, turns him over, 1, 2, 3, match is over in 10 seconds.
Grab the belt, do 15 more laps.
Oh my gosh. Warrior grabs the Intercontinental title, starts swinging it around his head, and the crowd loses their mind because they weren't expecting something like that.
And it was also the perfect meeting, though, of we hate this guy and we're sick of him, and here's this new meteoric rising thing, and we're going to put them together and have this combustion.
Yeah.
It was like him winning the title would have been a big thing anyway. Everybody loved the Warrior at that point. Honky losing the title, Honky Tonk Man, pardon me.
Right.
Losing the title would have been a big thing anyway. But the fact that they combined them, it was just rocket fuel.
It was. And and again, that was the way they were built up. That was the way there's you have to build something up, you got to stew on it. And that's the only problem with AEW right now is that their roster is they don't have a lot of people on their roster. Mm-hmm. So it's very tough. Like they're booking a match between Moxley and Pac next week on Dynamite. Yeah. That's a pay-per-view event. Those two could have a good pay-per-view match.
Totally.
But it is what it is. I'm excited. I'm interested to see where they're going to take that because I don't think that's going to...
Well, let me ask you a question, though. I think we might be conditioned now, because you're right, that match is going to be amazing.
Right.
I mean, they'd have to really shit the bed for that not to be a great match. But when we say it's pay-per-view quality, and I'm not disagreeing, what if we put that through the filter of, in WWE, that would absolutely be a pay-per-view match?
Right.
But now we have this company that's work rate focused. It's about giving these artists the freedom to thrive. Let's give them the tools to succeed and watch them grow.
Yeah.
If that's going to maybe set the tone for what a televised match is, think about how these guys are going to push themselves to recreate what a pay-per-view quality match can
Exactly. Be. Yeah. And that's a great point because AEW is doing something completely different. And on a regular basis, you're going to see a good match every single time. And, they had the Jurassic Brothers go against the Lucha Brothers, and it was the whole thing was entertaining, but man, the Lucha Brothers just ended up just crushing these little dudes.
Just for fun. Whoever's listening to this probably already has the visual, but let's just paint that picture real quick. So we have the Lucha Brothers, who are, I don't know how big they are. Let's say they're 5'10", 190 apiece.
Yeah.
Real cool Lucha outfits, spooky masks, cool outfits. Ultra athletic, violent.
Big.
Amazing. Some of my favorites on the planet. And then we have the Jurassic Express. Now, word has it that was supposed to feature Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus.
Yeah, Luchasaurus.
Luchasaurus, oh my God, is a 6'6", 260-pound brute who also does Taekwondo.
Yeah.
Who is wearing a freaking Halloween dragon mask, has a green tongue. His tag team partner is Luke Perry's son. His name is Jungle Boy. Jim Ross refuses to call him that. He's Jungle Jack Perry for marketing purposes, probably.
Yeah.
So for this match, it was supposed to be Jungle Boy and the Luchasaurus versus the Lucha Brothers.
Yeah.
The dinosaur gets injured. Here comes their third, Marco Stunt. How tall is Marco Stunt? Do you know? Is he 5 feet tall?
I think his forehead came up to the top rope, I think.
if he's 5'1", I don't even know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So now what we have are these two, globally recognized. I don't know if there's a tag team title on the planet outside of WWE that the Luchas haven't owned at this point.
Yeah.
There should have been this could have been a 30-second squash, and we all would have believed it.
Right.
And instead, they had to go on the fly. They had to replace the Beast, the Saurus, with Little Marco Stunt. And they still turned it into a 12-minute, really believable, super fun match.
They did. And that's, again, it's everything they're doing is organic. They're really gelling. Everybody's gelling with one another. They're having good matches. Even the tag team match last night, which set up the Pac Moxley match.
Hangman Page and
when Pac gets in there and he brought out the broom. Omega brought out the broom with barbed wire.
Yeah.
Moxley grabbed the bat with barbed wire.
Yep.
Pac came in and grabbed the weapons and kind of got in Moxley's face like, what the hell are you doing? You're going to get us disqualified.
Because he cares there. Because if you lose in that company, even in a tag match, that goes on your record.
Right.
If you're getting losses, you're not getting title matches. So it matters in that company.
Exactly. They're for anybody who's not privy to it, when wrestlers come out, they have their record below their name. So it's just kind of a different dynamic, something that, again, it's different.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of mentality.
It's cool.
So he gets in his face. He's like, what are you doing? And Moxley just gives him the double bird. F off. I'm out of here. Yep. And then just takes off.
Drops him with the DDT.
And it was great because he's like, I'm out of here. And he just tips out.
I found interesting, too? They're so smart in how they do this. I wondered if they were making a mistake by trying to focus on Hangman Page as potentially their first, big baby face.
Yeah.
And, he's great. I love the dude. I think he's fantastic. I like his work. I like he's, good-looking athlete, et cetera, et cetera. He just didn't maybe seem to kind of catch the crowd's excitement the way maybe they wanted him to.
Yeah.
So he tags with Omega. And Omega is just beloved. He's
huge.
A demigod in wrestling at this point. It would have been so easy to let Omega hit the one-wing angel and hit the pin. That would have made sense.
Right.
But he didn't. He hit a V-trigger, and they let Hangman hit that buckshot lariat.
Yep.
And then he hit him with whatever that reverse pile driver thing is called.
Yeah. I can't remember what that.
And they had Hangman take that win with Omega posing behind.
Right.
Even that is just a rub to this other guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is.
Small detail,
and again, it's Omega caring about lifting the next guy up. Right. And that's what they're doing is different. That's why I honestly believe All Elite is the future. And a lot of people, especially on the internet, there's a lot of people you're never going to win over. There's a lot of people who are they will live and die by the WWE sword. Oh and God. I've gotten into it a couple of times, not too heavy because I don't like arguing on the internet. It's a waste of time, but I love making people feel stupid for being wrong about wrestling because I don't do that in any other thing in life. I love people's opinions and I love diversity in all ways. But when it comes to wrestling, when you're going to sit there and just be blatantly stupid saying that AEW is unentertaining and it's boring and I wasn't impressed and WWE is the way better product, and I'm just like, They have you completely twirled around their finger.
And you know what a lot of those people pointed to as evidence for them being right? Look at their production value. Look at that giant Titantron. Look at the size of the set. Look at the professionalism of the whatever.
Yeah.
Everything except the goddamn product.
Yep. And another thing that I kind of want to touch about, too, before we get into what we're going to talk about on the next episode, the way that the show is shot is something that I have a keen eye for, and you'll probably know what I'm talking about too. You ever notice how WWE's product has slowed way down and there's no natural flow to the match?
Yes, absolutely.
The way they shoot their matches is actually tricking people into thinking the action is bigger than it is.
Oh, yeah, those quick cuts.
Quick cuts and the super zooms.
Yep.
When there's a punch being thrown, they do the super zoom, and they make it look much more impactful than it really is. Because when they sit back and you watch the match, everything is so slow moving.
Right.
And I feel like, again, there's a natural chemistry I think wrestlers have in the ring. They know how to put on a match with their body. They know how to tell the story with their body.
Yeah.
And you have to have a lot of, you got to have good cardio because you can't slow it down. You got to keep going. And not that everything has to be rushed, but there's a certain way that you can tell a story with your body and keep the match flowing and keep people interested. Yeah. And I feel like with the way WWE shoots their product now too, it's very Zoom-eccentric and quick cuts, and like it's to take your attention off of how slow everything is going.
And so think of that, like from Meta Level again, they're going to sell, what's the average? Let's say 13,000, 14,000 to a Raw.
Yeah.
Right around there?
Yep.
They're going to pack this place with 14,000 supposed wrestling fans. They're going to pay however much money they pay. And then the product that they're there to watch is going to be put on in excruciatingly slow, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're right. Vince has always said, we're making movies here. He fancies himself as some kind of Scorsese in his own mind.
Yeah.
So that's it's almost like he's invited that whole audience in to watch him, like to be on the set, to watch him making this movie.
Yeah.
So he's making it for the viewers at home. And in doing that, he's ripping off 14,000 people a night.
Yeah.
It's just like mind-boggling where his focus goes.
I don't understand it. I don't understand how, like, again, how you can have a group of thousands of people yelling at you, this is what we want.
Yeah.
And not just this is what we want, like, give us what we want. But in turn, they're saying,
give me what I want.
buy me something. It's more of the people that we are telling you that deserve this.
I'm your customer. Give me what I want. No. You can't have what you want.
Right.
Take what I'm going to give you. I don't want what you're going to give me. I want what I want. I'm going to give you what I want.
And at this point in the game, you're a $1 billion company, and you have no competition on the grand scale. But you're going to start seeing people who appreciate wrestling tuning into NXT and tuning into AEW. But the big difference between NXT and AEW is the production, number one. So they're probably going to start putting some heavy production into NXT. But again, they're going to start putting...
That's not what's... Yeah.
They're going to start putting the focus on their farm system, basically, which is their Wednesday night competition. But again, there is no competition for what AEW is doing. Because they're getting wrestling back to what it once was, but in a new way.
Right. They're
doing things a little bit differently. Like you said, they're adding their record underneath their entrance.
Yeah.
And that's going to determine where they land. And it's a little bit different than anything that's ever been done before. But when it gets to the flow of the match, when it comes back to the broadcast team really telling the story and really examining the wrestlers and digging a little bit deeper into them while calling the match and staying focused on the wrestling, you feel now watching WWE that they're just off in their own little world, and they're reading you the entire book, and it's just like it's distracting, and they don't have the natural charisma that Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross and who's the third guy is Exciter? No, not Exciter.
Something. He's wearing a witch mask. I can't.
Damn it.
Excommunicator. Xavier. Is that what it is? I can't remember what his damn name is. I know that a whole lot of pro WWE internet personalities, like former '90s and early 2000s stars, shit on him for wearing a mask. But better commentator than they are.
You look at what they did with not only like their broadcast team. You have Excalibur. He's got a lot of excitement that early Jim Ross had. And Jim Ross still has a lot of excitement. And Jim Ross is there. Tony Schiavone, they were the leaders of the Attitude Era. And also, on top of that, they got Hugo Savinovich, who is their Spanish announce commentator, who's also there as well. I love the backstage. There's a whole bunch of guys in the backstage that are working there. You got Dean Malenko, who's in the back, Billy Gunn, who's in the back.
Arn Anderson.
as coaches. And that's another thing too. Oh, even the referee. I think it's Aubrey Edwards. Yeah. I call her the action ref Everything that happens, she's got this big reaction to.
She sells it all.
She is my favorite referee in wrestling right now.
You know how long she's been doing it for?
No.
2 years.
Really?
She actually came from WWE.
Oh my gosh. She is the action ref. Everything. And we were laughing too because she got in Jericho's face on Wednesday and he pushed her and she pushed him back.
Yep.
And she was like...
It's like that old Dave Hebner move.
Yeah. And I was like, be careful. Anything you do to him, you do to yourself. Because of the reactions. Yeah. I was just like, I love her. She's again,
great.
Maybe... people won't recognize that, but like we were, just hanging out watching. It's just something we noticed.
Yeah.
And it's very, again, she's super animated in the ring.
It's all why would you not want to use every little detail to put more nuance in your story? You have it available. Why would you not want to use it?
I don't get it. But that's why at this point, I'm not questioning anything AEW is doing. I'm embracing it. I love everything that they're doing so far.
Every bit of it.
I love their production. They care about their fans. They really care about... They know that they're there for a reason. They know the fans are there for a reason. They're there to see a good product. And not just to see a good product, but give them something to believe in again.
Yeah.
Give them something to not be embarrassed by.
It feels like a big apology from people who never owed the apology. It's like they're apologizing for the industry.
Yeah.
Here, let us fix this for you. And I love the fact that Tony Khan, who's the owner... And for those who don't know, Tony Khan's father owns the Jacksonville Jaguars in the NFL. Family's worth a reported like $8 to $10 billion or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's so amazing that Tony Khan was a total wrestling mark his entire life. He's apparently like bordering on savant status. He can drum up. Yeah, you could ask him about a show from 15 years ago. He'll tell you the gate. He'll tell you the people there. Like I've heard crazy stories.
Wow.
He's just a huge fan.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't like, let's get in on this business thing. He was like, here are some guys. Here's Cody. Here are the Bucks. These are people who are making noise all over the planet.
Yeah.
Organically. There's no big machine pushing them. They're just making it happen. And as a fan, he went, that's exciting. These people love it. Let me give you guys money and a platform to do this bigger and more often.
Yeah.
Did you ever get into PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, out of California?
I did not. I was, like I said, I was a little bit disconnected with wrestling for a bit.
A lot of what's happening in AEW is kind of a bigger version of Pro Wrestling Guerrilla.
Okay.
It was just like a party atmosphere. It was ultra athletic, and it was a little tongue-in-cheek.
Okay.
AEW's got some vibe of that tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
Kind of playing wink-wink with you. Right down to Knox, the dude who is a referee, the bald guy.
Okay.
He's like the classic PWG referee.
Okay.
The Young Bucks kind of blew up in PWG.
Right.
I just really enjoy that. You were saying a minute ago, these kind of elitists who think that they know what's going on with wrestling because they view it through Vince's lens.
Yeah.
Well, obviously this is the thing. Everybody else has been like, okay, fine, you have the spotlight. We're going to start our own revolution, and it's been global.
Yeah.
From Mexico to Japan to the UK to Germany, global independent wrestling absolutely exploded under the tyranny of Vince's monopoly. And it all just kind of conglomerated into AEW. The best elements of all of that.
That's fantastic.
It's now AEW. It's amazing to watch.
And that's, again, look what happened the last time everybody thought that WWE was on top of the world. Mm-hmm. When they said, "Oh, we don't need those old fossils anymore. We've got these young guys." Right. Oh, look what happened. They ended up getting smoked every single night for months and months and months. And 88 weeks, I think.
83 weeks.
It's 83 weeks in a row. They were being crushed by their opponent. And again, I don't think this is going to be one of those things where AEW is going to put WWE out of business. I don't think
WWE might put itself out of business.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy. So my friend John, who lives in town, shout out, John Jacobs, he and I have had this little debate where I said, if they're not careful, they're going to go out of business. He's like, that's not going to happen for at least 10 or 20 years. They have $1 billion.
Yeah.
I was like, well, in theory, they have $1 billion. So hear me out. Just like we're saying that wrestling used to be the focus of wrestling.
Yeah.
Figure. And then it became the bells and whistles and the marketing and the movies and the studio and the reality shows, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, the last thing they focus on is the basis of everything. The basis of everything that they put the least amount of quality into. So somehow Fox comes along and goes, hey, we want to put your stuff on our channels. Here's $1 billion. That's not exaggeration. That sounds crazy. They said, here's $1 billion for your product. We are going to need you to put a return on that in terms of ratings.
Right.
About 2 months before they were supposed to hit Fox News, I'm sorry, not Fox News, but Fox Sports, their ratings started to just dive bomb.
Yeah.
All the way down to like high 1 points. Like, I mean, we're talking a third of what the heyday crowd used to be.
Right.
And they're weeks away from the biggest debut in the history of their company, and they're maybe in the worst creative position they've ever been in. And I told them they're not going to let them just put that shit on their TV show just because they paid them. Yeah. They're either going to take that money back or they're going to change the terms of the agreement. Yeah. But people aren't going to tune in just because it's Fox and just because it's on more sets. If it sucks, it sucks. Right. And it sucks.
Right. Exactly. And I'll be honest with you. You know what breaks my heart? One of the guys who I've most looked up to, because he really was a part, like I said, huge part of my childhood. I've been I think he is one of the most inspirational men to come around the last 100 years is Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
To see where he came from and that nothing was ever guaranteed for him. And he had a shot to make it in wrestling, but it wasn't guaranteed. It was going to involve working hard and developing himself. And, you know, the fact that he's got a production company called $7 Production, which is no exaggeration, had $7 in his name, sleeping on a pissy mattress in Canada, to being one of the most wealthiest men in the world. Well, maybe not the wealthiest men in the world, but one of the wealthiest actors, most successful, and he still remains humble and kind and lighthearted. He is one of the most impressive people to come around in wrestling of all time.
Can even a cynical wrestling fan find a way to say that they don't like The Rock?
I know some people who, I've actually met people who don't, just thought it was like a little too much. And for me, The Rock had multiple layers to him. I loved when The Rock became so huge and he came back and he knew he was huge.
Oh, he was like,
and he turned
like Rockstar Rock.
Rockstar Rock. Yeah. That was hilarious because it was so overly cheesy.
Oh my God, so good.
And for him to come back on SmackDown and absolutely bury their biggest heel was kind of like, okay, great. Like he was passing the torch to the man who I really like.
Yeah. Talking about Becky Lynch.
Becky Lynch. Yep. And, but the sad thing is it didn't bring me any real joy to see him come out there and bury someone in rock bottom and give someone...
What does it accomplish?
Right. And that's the thing. It's nothing against The Rock. I love the frickin' Rock. He is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But this time around, again, it wasn't his fault. Nope. It was WWE going, ooh, we need Hogan. Ooh, we need The Rock. Ooh, we need... And it's like, no, you got everything you need right there.
Invest in your materials. You are brimming with gold tickets.
And they just, like, that was a big thing for me. Bringing Ric Flair and Hogan and The Rock, I'm like, they're going to the well. Yep. And they just keep going to the well to bring viewers in. And it's like, what are you going to do when they go away?
That's what I'm saying. It feels very much like they're just grasping. There's no forward grasp.
Right.
It's all backwards. And they're being dragged in one direction, and it's like they're crawling in the other, and they're still being dragged into the future.
And, yeah.
Those guys aren't... Did you see that abysmal match between Goldberg and Undertaker at
my gosh.
Crazy Saudi Arabia show?
What a freaking mess.
That was, like, nightmarish.
What a mess. And you could see the frustration on both of their faces. Yeah. They're like, what are we doing out here? What
would have happened if one of those guys had died? Because they both could have very easily.
Yeah.
They both got head dropped. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
During 100... This was the crazy part of it. Not only is it absolutely insane that they're in Saudi Arabia within months of the murder of this journalist.
Yeah.
They're the first big, like, American media company to go, yeah, we'll take $10 million and come perform for the royal family. That sounds like a great PR move. We'll do that.
Yeah, we'll take that.
And by the way, it's about a 12-hour time change, and it's about 109 degrees in the fucking desert. Let's put out a couple of 57-year-old dudes who can barely walk and have them pick each other up for 10 minutes and drop each other around. See how that works out. I legit thought Goldberg was going to die. Oh. I legit thought he killed The Undertaker on that stupid botched jackhammer brainbuster. Like,
oh my God.
Every bit of it. And I know that they just decided they're going to pull The Undertaker from the new show. I don't know if he's injured or I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. But that to me was just the epitome of this is what's wrong with trying to recapture lightning that happened 20 years ago.
And again, you know, and I'll always, and here's the, and this is my opinion. I think what they're doing with the MMA crap has to end. Yep. And it's not going to, because Vince is in love with MMA people.
Yeah, this is real. They're making us look real.
And that's the thing. It's putting people who are completely inexperienced and lack the respect for the art of wrestling in primetime spotlight matches that nobody is excited about, and they're going to be pissed off with the performance because it's going to be terrible. Yep. And you know, and this kind of goes back to when Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker. When that streak ended, everything about The Undertaker and WrestleMania became pointless.
Poof.
It's similar to Goldberg's winning streak. Mm-hmm. It was incredible. It was one of the coolest storylines ever in wrestling, that you had a guy who legitimately was undefeated. Now, of course, Andre the Giant was undefeated for over 15 years in professional wrestling.
Well, let's not make light of the fact that Goldberg, he won like 176 matches in 92 days.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. Like, okay, it jumped from, he's 20 and 0. Oh, now he's 45 and 0.
It's like he's a badass. Wow. He's winning 9 matches a day.
Right. Yeah. And I look at it like, and it's something that you touched on earlier in the episode with Bray Wyatt. If anybody should have taken that torch, it would have been Bray Wyatt.
The Phenom torch. Yeah.
The Phenom torch. When it was Bray Wyatt versus The Undertaker, I think that was the first time since WrestleMania 9 that I saw The Undertaker wrestle somebody who I was like, that's a guy whose character threatens The Undertaker's character.
Yeah. I really thought that was the perfect opportunity to do a little bit of a pass, because they're both supernatural.
Yeah.
They're both legitimately intimidating, athletic, different body types or whatever. I would argue that Bray is a stronger, this might be an unpopular take, The Undertaker could have never been done by anybody else besides Mark Callis.
Right.
But in terms of like well-rounded character development and ability, I'm going to give the nod to Bray. I really am.
He's not only captured the imagination of audiences, but just the way he's come across with the whole stable that he created. They just set the tone for that. And again, you look at we'll always go back to it. Audience participation. When the lights went, everyone's flashlight on their phone went up.
Those fireflies.
The Fireflies. And again, that shows you that people are invested in a character. So when that WrestleMania happened and, Bray Wyatt ultimately lost to The Undertaker, I didn't have any super negative vibes about it. I felt like Bray Wyatt should have won, but I was very happy that they had chosen a partner for him to work with that really captured that phenom. Because like I said, the last time The Undertaker faced somebody who I looked at as like, okay, he's a real threat to his character, was the Giant Gonzalez in WrestleMania 9. Now, even though that guy, as great of a worker as he was, because he worked all over the world, he had that was the thing. He was a monster.
You're talking about Giant Gonzalez?
Yeah, because he was
a great worker?
Well, he traveled all over the world.
I mean,
he wasn't anyone big.
So did airline pilots.
Right. But he did what he had to do.
Yeah.
He came in there. He was not going to get in there and do suplexes and flips.
Right.
He was going in there to challenge a phenom.
Yeah, he was 13 feet tall.
Exactly. So you're not going to be doing Hurricanranas or anything, but he's going to go in there and be who he's supposed to be, and that's what made that match interesting, because you were looking at this guy like, this guy's a beast.
You didn't buy into Shawn Michaels beating The Undertaker either time.
Yeah, again, two superstars who in their prime were amazing, who never had any dealings with one another. So as great as the matches were, Shawn Michaels' opponents were always, it was completely different. Like, The Undertaker always took on these super heels because he was the...
I think you might have been on a wrestling vacation, though, because the first Hell in a Cell was Shawn Michaels and Undertaker.
Yeah, they did.
That's where Kane, debuted.
Yeah, when Kane debuted, which is still, other than Mick Foley, it's still one of my favorite Hell in the Cells. Yeah, they kicked the crap out of each other.
That was the one, to me, like, they've had bigger spots, obviously, in other matches.
Yeah.
Just exceedingly crazier and higher and more dangerous spots. But in terms of just, like, palpable work rate violence.
Oh, yeah.
That first one, and Shawn Michaels was bleeding buckets all over the front row.
That was
just bumping his ass off for a half an hour. Like, it's kind of a cliche, but it's almost all been downhill from there to me.
Yeah, like I said, it's, again, when you crossed over 98, 99, 2000, that's when, things started to change. And again, the product in WCW was fading so hardcore at the time. WWE was still doing everything in their power, but they ran into those struggles, like Austin getting injured and The Rock leaving to do movies. And so, like when Austin was injured, they needed a badass. Mm-hmm. So there was The Undertaker as the American badass.
Right.
So
I always choose to forget that.
Yeah, me too.
That wasn't my thing.
Anything Kid Rock, I choose to ignore. God. And, it was a matter of things were changing, and as soon as it crossed over to 2000, 2001, you could sense that things were not going to be the same. And when like I said, when the buyout happened, that's honestly when I was like, huh.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I remember watching WCW. I remember watching WWE on WCW. And that's when I was like, wow, this is weird.
Show. That was wild, right?
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is really weird. And it was just kind of sad because I was like, well, I guess that's the end of wrestling. And that's how I looked at it, because I still paid attention to it, but I was also doing my own backyard wrestling at the time, and I cared way more about that than what WWE was doing.
Yeah.
And that became my life. I stopped caring about what WWE was doing because I wasn't interested anymore. Yep. They bought everybody out, and I was like, then what's the point of watching?
Right.
What's the point of, I think that's just been their mentality, is what's the point?
Right. And I don't know how close we are, if we're going to go all night, works for me. But I'm thinking of the Ruthless Aggression era.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think when WWE presents it, they want to show John Cena saying that through his clenched teeth and then slapping Kurt Angle in the mouth, right?
Yeah.
Ruthless Aggression. When I think of that era, I think of what a lot of people refer to as the Heyman Six. So from SmackDown.
Yeah.
They were decidedly putting all their chips into Raw, so SmackDown was the B team, had been forever and ever, right up until recently. And so they kind of let Heyman run it, and it almost looked like they were looking the other way. You know what? Go ahead. Just run the B show.
Yeah.
And that's when the Radicals came up from WCW.
Yeah.
So we get Perry Saturn, we get Dean Malenko, we get Eddie Guerrero, we get he who should not be named, Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
You've got Booker T there already. You've got Kurt Angle. You got Edge. You got Mysterio.
Yep.
I would argue that era right there for about 2 years maybe produced some of WWE's all-time best in-ring product.
Yeah.
And that was after the shit show of absorbing all these other companies when the monopoly was starting to just turn into mud.
Exactly. They were. That's one thing that they were wise on, was the fact that they had the best of the best, and now they could filter everybody out that they wanted to filter out. And I will give them props, because they did some things for people who truly deserved it. This guy almost got into it with me the other night at the bar, because I think he misunderstood me when I said WCW didn't care about their mid-card guys, and he freaked out at me, and I was like, no, towards the end. And he was like, because he's like, they absolutely cared about their mid-card guys. I was like, well, yes.
Was he thinking about the TV title from like the early or the late 80s, early 90s?
No, it was during WCW's reign. He thought that what I said was WCW didn't give a crap about any of their mid-card guys.
Yeah.
What I meant by that was towards the end of their run, mid-card guys were getting sick and tired of working for Eric Bischoff because they were never going to go anywhere.
Right. They were
never going to get what they deserved. Eddie Guerrero.
They weren't ex-WWE. They weren't NWO material.
Basically, they weren't NWO, so they were never going to, they were throwing a bone every once in a while, but that's why they formed the Latino World Order, because they were like, hey, if you can't beat them, join them.
Yep.
And it started to just, it was just a really unhappy time for a lot of guys. So when they saw what WWE was doing, where there was real opportunity to headline and get some main spotlight and given mic time and have storylines, yes, please. They were starving. And subsequently, look at what ended up happening. Eddie Guerrero given the world title, earning the world title.
Oh my
Rey
God.
Mysterio Jr., or Rey Mysterio gaining the world title. Guys that absolutely deserved
Booker T
to hold the world title. And they gave a lot of those guys their fair due for the work that they had put in.
Yep.
I felt like that was something that was good on them, was that they said, your hard work is recognized.
Yeah.
And they put on some stellar matches. And again, there's just, you could go into it all night about all the mistakes that were made through the Attitude Era and how they ended up on top and how WCW kind of fell apart. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, the product changed after the buyout. And you made a good point too about the next couple of years after that. They focused greatly on the Ruthless Aggression era and all those guys, and it produced some incredible matches. And then towards the end of the late 2000s going into 2010, it really became the John Cena show.
Yep.
And it became a kids product, and it became very family and kid oriented, and they toned down on a lot of stuff, and society changed, and they changed with it to, because they didn't want to offend anybody.
Right.
And a lot of people still had that burning desire to keep it edgy and to keep it exciting and new. And
right.
I think it just slowly but surely started becoming stagnant, and I think a lot of wrestlers started to see what it would eventually become. And here they are. This is what they're doing. And
right.
they've got 2 headlining matches in Saudi Arabia, all containing MMA fighters.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a joke.
Tyson Fury, he's a boxer.
I know.
Was he British boxer?
Yeah, like a boxer or something. And it's just like,
how many wrestling fans even know? I didn't even know who he was.
I had no idea. I was like, why? And he's getting how much? $10 million?
This is a classic example of Vince looking around at his own company and saying, I'm embarrassed of this thing. I'm embarrassed of the people who like it. Let me get on a bigger platform and grab some recognizable real athletes. And now I'm going to attract people who like real athletes and disregard his own product and his own talent in doing so. It's so absurd.
I don't get it. Because, like I said, I have a lot of love for WWE. I agree. It was, there's a lot of people who really were into WCW in the early 90s. And I'll be honest with you, I was not a WCW guy. I would think I was actually kind of oblivious that it even existed.
Yeah. I was an old NWA fan, like back in the day.
Really?
Yeah,
because I was honestly oblivious that it even existed until I found out that Hulk Hogan went there to WCW.
Yeah.
And then I was like, WCW?
You might actually enjoy going back. Like, now that NWA is relaunched, and by the way, if you haven't watched Power, it's pretty great.
Nice.
You talk about a nostalgic experience. It feels and looks and sounds a hell of a lot like those old studio NWA, WCW type shows.
Really?
Some of the same, well, no, it can't be some of the same performance. You have to watch it. It's free on YouTube.
Okay.
Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins
owns it. Yeah, that's right.
He's a huge wrestling fan. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I was just thinking a minute ago, like, we started talking about Jim Ross.
Yeah.
And now we're thinking about that era, the Ruthless Aggression. A lot of people know him as just being the voice of WWE, and prior to that, voice of WCW.
Yeah.
A lot of people maybe don't realize that he was also head of talent relations and recruiting for a very long time.
Yeah.
In WWE. And if for people who don't know, listen to this list. He's the one who signed in the Radicals. So let's say it again. We got Benoit. We got Guerrero. We got Saturn. Mm-hmm. We got Dean Malenko. These are all great ones.
Yeah.
He also, though, recruited The Rock. And when he was recruiting people down to their farm system, he's responsible for Batista, Cena, and Brock Lesnar. If that's not a who's who of the biggest stuff they've done in the last, 25 years?
Right.
And now he's coming back around with his new company who's given them all free reign to just kill it. I think it's like the perfect circle to come all the way back around.
He's one of the most intelligent minds in wrestling history. Jim Ross is one of my biggest inspirations as a broadcaster. His ability to call a match and to get you to believe that what you're watching is real and natural.
Incredible.
I think if you're ever going to go on solo talent alone, it's very hard to say what the best team of all time is, because it's a very hard decision. But if you're going to go on one solo person, Jim Ross is, for me, an easy pick is the greatest play-by-play wrestling commentator of all time.
I don't have any problem with that.
His calls are so natural, and a lot of times he didn't know what was going to happen because he kind of wanted it that way.
Yeah, I heard that he would actually ask not to give him the results so he could have that authentic response in the moment.
Yeah, and it's just, I respect him so much, and I think I love his podcast. I love the fact that he's all elite. I'm so excited for this product. I'm so excited to see where it goes, and what I'm most excited about is to be excited about wrestling again.
Right?
It really takes me back to when I was a teenager, and I go, this is why I got into wrestling.
Yeah.
Because it's exciting.
Yeah.
So we're going to see where it ends up going to.
Yeah. I'm really excited just for the ability to be able to think, when are some disgruntled WWE guys going to pop in on AEW?
Oh, no doubt.
Like the old days when all of a sudden WCW is popping in on WWE and vice versa. That was so mind-blowing at the time.
And it was, but I think the big difference between then and now is that you are good. If that happens, you're going to have guys who are in their prime. I hate to say that Razor Ramon and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were not in their prime, but let's
say right at the end of it.
Look at the success that they had achieved in WWE.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of, just talking to you, there's already so many ideas for future podcasts that I'm thinking of. One of them in particular that I think we should get into sometime is a list of guys who never held the WWE title who should have. I think that there's a lot of guys that you could easily...
WWE title or World Championship?
Well, both actually. Yeah, you could easily make an argument for both because WCW and WWE were stacked for a long time. And like I said, I think that's what the exciting thing about AEW is you can now watch two different main brands in prime time and kind of look at the two and just go, okay, this is what we got going on. And I think the more people start opening their minds up to the new federation and the way they're doing things, they're going to be persuaded. I hope that they're persuaded, not because I want WWE to fail, but maybe it'll encourage them to start thinking outside the box again. And I think that's what ended when they bought their competition out, ultimately. I think that's why I stopped watching, because we go back and we say, what's the point? We don't have to really try. Let's try to be creative, but we don't have to be too creative. Our lives don't depend on it anymore.
Right.
Their lives don't depend on it because they're a $1 billion company, and they're about to bridge out and make the XFL again.
Oh my God.
Which,
can you believe that?
I understand it. I understand what the mentality is, because a lot of people are angry at the NFL. You said you're not a huge regular sports fan. I grew up playing sports and watching sports. I enjoy it, but I'm not too emotionally involved in a lot of it. I just kind of look at it for what it is. Even the Red Wings are my favorite team ever. But even now, it's hard to emotionally get involved in a sports team because it requires so much energy. And not that I don't have the energy for it, but my life is different now.
Sure.
So I keep an eye on it. I still love it, and I still get excited about it, but it's not anything that I'm extremely passionate about as much as I used to be. But I get why he wants to do the XFL, because a lot of football fans are really pissed off at the way the NFL runs. It's one of the largest companies in the world, run by billionaires, and they can't freaking they can't make calls right at all. And the people who are determining ultimately the outcome of games beside the players are part-time workers who don't know how to do their job properly and don't know all the rules. And of course, Detroit fans just take the beating.
Don't even get me started on the fact that it's a whole lot of old white men with billions of dollars making their money off a whole lot of brown bodies killing themselves on a field.
Yeah.
If that's not a problem, then you got a problem.
Exactly. And, I think, again, XFL is trying to offer a product to a different kind of football fan who loves the sport of football but does not like the BS that the NFL is producing, because they've produced a lot of BS. And a lot of the BS
that Vince is going to be the one to swoop in and save people from a BS product.
My gosh.
Holy shit.
I don't even know what to expect. I'm going to watch it because I really want to see what it's all about. I really want to see what the XFL is all about and where they're going to take it. But ultimately, I think they're looking for a product there's less BS, there's less drama, which is going to come because there's less money and less talent, raw talent. The best players in the world are still going to go to the NFL. But I think it'll be a cool opportunity for other athletes who are not the best players in the world, so they're the semi-elite.
It might start to represent, in a way, it might start to look like independent wrestling. How those people are hungry and they're putting their all. I mean, it'd be silly to say that there are people half-assing it on an NFL field. Those are the best football players of the best football players of the best football players. Right. But for those who have a lot of talent and still get looked past, think about the chip on their shoulder that they're going to try to bring to that game. Yeah. They're going to prove people wrong. That feels awfully parallel to what happened with people trying to push against the WWE.
Yeah, and the XFL, the first time around, was a very gimmicky thing. That was like, okay, you really doing this, bro? Yeah. This time around, I think they're putting way more of a professional thought because the sport's changed so much. Yeah. And I think they're recognizing what NFL fans are angry about, and they're saying, let's do everything that they're not doing that the fans are angry about. Let's put that into our product. And it's like, gee, if only you had another product.
Maybe, What would we do if you had a multi-billion-dollar wrestling company and you had the ability to make some money with that? What would you do?
By God! Jesus! Again, we'll see where the XFL goes, and we'll really see where All Elite takes wrestling again and where it's going to take it back to. And when I say it's the future, I feel like that it's the future of getting wrestling back to what it should be about, what it should all be about. Having people invested in the product, emotionally drawn into it, giving them a reason. It's Wednesday. We have to watch All Elite. We have to know what's going on. We have to make a tradition. And that's what it was on Monday nights. It used to be like that. Monday Night Raw, we're not missing it. That's what we're doing. And, I think that's what they're going to bring back, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So the next episode that we're going to get into, I think I want to go through our top 10 tag teams of all time.
Yeah, cool.
It'd be any federation, and when you're building your list also, I'm just going to take into consideration athletic ability, chemistry, fan favorites, because just the fan involvement.
Sure.
And it'll be an interesting list because there are some tag teams that are just raw, natural tag teams, and then there were very oddball tag teams that really just somehow work together. That how would these people ever team up? And it's all opinion based, but I want to kind of dig into your brain a little bit and see what some of your favorites are, and we'll take it from there. And like I said, if you guys listening to the podcast enjoy it, make sure you subscribe. 104.9 The Edge YouTube. Feel free to share this with your friends. We're just trying to get it out there. And if you've got anything to say or comment on, make sure you comment on Facebook as well. Let us know what you think. Throw us your thoughts. If you guys want to join us, we can always take calls. We'll set some more interviews up coming up in the future. There's a lot of big things on the way, too. We've got a couple of wrestlers who have kind of basically, we haven't locked a date down, but we have confirmed that we're going to be talking to a couple of professional wrestlers, so we'll announce that when we get to it.
So exciting.
It's going to be so freaking cool. So we appreciate you joining us on the Crucial Squared Circle. Obviously, we're going to be doing this a little bit more, so we appreciate you guys hanging out and listening to it. Mark Franchise and Davison Sarai. We're here, and we'll be back again with the most crucial podcast, Crucial Squared Circle. We'll talk to you soon.